I'm Johnny Ferry, and I'm a VP of Business Development at a company called Honeyville. We're a food manufacturer, and I have a wife and 4 kids. I'm recording this for posterity, mainly for my kids, so for the chance for them to hear about where I was on 9/11 and maybe some of my thoughts about it. So I was born and raised on a cattle ranch, and one of the things we learned was hard work and to find ways to get things done. But we also learned to love the land and the country that we live in, the freedoms that we enjoy, to watch things grow. And as I think about my experiences of 9/11, it's one of those times where it kind of came together, where I reflected heavily, and since then I reflect a lot on how blessed I was to be born where I am, to live where I am, to have the freedoms that we have, and that goes along with being able to protect those freedoms. So when I was, as I graduated from school and took a job with Honeyville, this was 21 years ago. It was my first year with Honeyville, and part of my job was to help with the production lines, to figure out what equipment that we needed to make that better, to make our processing better. So I booked a ticket for a food show that was in Las Vegas, and I was going to meet the president of the company there. His name's Lowell Sherritt. Now Lowell happens to be my wife's grandfather too, and so this was a family company that I married into, and great people and a great company. It was just going to be Lowell and I, and then later that day we were going to have other members of the team fly in, and we were going to go see this food show and pick out equipment that we needed to make products like pancakes and other things. So I woke up on September 11th, 2001, and there was a knocking at my door. It was at a hotel, and we were at the New Orleans in Las Vegas, and about ready to go over to this food show. And I opened the door, and it was Lowell, the president of the company, and he said, "Hey, I don't think we're going to go to this food show today." And I said, What are you talking about?" And he said, "Turn on your TV." So went over, turned on the TV, and this was just a few minutes before the second tower was hit. So the first tower had been hit, and there was smoke and everything that must have been CNN or one of the news channels was reporting. And we watched that, and as we were watching, all of a sudden the second plane crashed into the tower. And I remember thinking that when the first plane hit, it was probably like what most people thought, maybe it was an accident. You didn't really know. But when the second plane hit, it kind of sent a shock that was, hey, this is something more. This is an attack on us. And it was like one of those moments where you're like, okay, this is somebody who doesn't want us to have these things that we've enjoyed in life, the freedoms and the ability to be successful, the religious beliefs that we might prescribe to. So from there, we decided that probably weren't going to go to the food show. We contacted the food show. They were not going to be showing that day. And rather than fly back, at the time I was living in California, Lowell was living in Utah. My family's all from Utah, and so we decided that what we would do is probably what turned out to be one of the better experiences of my life and my time with Lowell. So here's this 80-year-old man who still is working hard at his company, as a milling company, and we just go through this experience, and he says, "Hey, you know what, let's just take the day and let's just drive back to Utah." And I'm married into the family. I knew Lowell, but I never really had spent that one-on-one time with him. And so what we ended up doing was he was from Southern California and also from Utah. He grew up in Cedar City. And so on our way back, we stopped from Las Vegas, we stopped in Cedar City and spent time driving around. And he pointed out to me, there was the church that he went to. He pointed out to me some of the homes that his wife had grown up in, that he had grown up in, and told me stories, just kind of wandered, and more of a kind of decompression about what had happened, letting us just like, I think it was that draw that everybody felt once the towers were hit, that were there really was the, hug your family, go grab your kids and tell them you love them. And I felt that from Lowell. I mean, he didn't come up and give me a hug or anything, but I could tell that he was feeling sentimental about all this. The same kind of feeling that you feel at different life experiences, maybe a funeral or a wedding or, birth of a child. It was one of those where you just like, nothing else really is that important anymore. The work, the business, it's there and it'll still be there. But for right now, let's just take a second and appreciate what we got. So we drove around and he showed me all of these different areas, and I look at it as one of the better experiences that I've had with someone who I respected, and so we get back home and continued on. But my thoughts go on when I think about September 11th. I think of that experience that I had. One, to be able to see the chaos of what was happening and watch the subsequent news reports. And but I also look at it as a blessing that it allowed me to have that time one-on-one with somebody who was important to me, and it was an important part of my life later on as he was around for another 20 years. But we always look back and reflected on that. And I think that the another thing that was important to me is after the memorial was set up in the museum in New York, I've been there several times, and every time I go, I pick up something new about thoughts on what we can do to improve and make our country better. And it's a reminder of people who didn't want to die, get hurt, to give up all those things, and to be grateful for the time that we have. And then the second thing was that to seek to spread the good news of what America is and what it represents, the freedoms and the democracy, our ability to have the freedom to vote and to respect those around us and love our neighbor, all the stuff that goes with being a good American. And I think all of that represents and comes out in not only for the time that 9/11, what it represents and the tragedies there, but just in general the patriotism that comes out when you start thinking about it. So those are my thoughts.